Hi there, this is Ruth Bradstreet with Above the Tree Line. I'm doing a webinar today about weeding with Edelweiss Analytics. I'm the product manager here for Edelweiss Analytics, so I work with this a lot, and I am interested to know if you have feedback or questions about this. This is really to show our current customers how it works for the most part. I do have my colleague Joe Foster on the line as well, and he can take questions. So if you have a question as we go through, there's a little chat area where you can put your question in, and we'll get to you before the end. So weeding. Basically, every library has to do some weeding. It's not everyone's favorite job, I know. It's sometimes painful to have to say goodbye to books, but it also, makes space for the new books and the things that can, flourish in your garden of books. So we spent quite a bit of time sort of fine-tuning our reading tools in Edelweiss Analytics, and it's one of the three main things that people do as part of collection development, and three things that we're doing with Edelweiss Analytics, which are to find books to buy, basically help with acquisitions and purchasing, help move things around, so find ways to move materials within your libraries or between libraries to sort of rebalance collections. And then the third thing, of course, is weeding, which is making some space or replacing old copies of your materials. So, and what we have in the Edelweiss weeding, I'm going to give you a demo as well, but I'm going to talk through it a little bit first, is kind of two aspects to it, and one of them is weeding profiles, which means you can build a set of parameters essentially that you can apply to a particular set of titles and quickly get weeding results or weeding suggestions. So you can have multiple profiles. So you can create a profile and call it this profile is for the East Branch, or you can create a profile that is specifically just for grubby or worn books, and then save that. And also you can share them with your colleagues as well. So you can set parameters for these four things. So you can set high circulation, so things that have searched a lot, giving you kind of a worn report. Low circulation, so things that are not moving that you might just want to remove and not replace. Age, so the amount of time that items have been in the collection, and also the pub date. You can do a combination of those things. You can share these profiles with colleagues, so if you're working with other collection development staff in other branches or at your branch, they can all use these groups of settings that you've created. And then you can also just change those. So you can borrow somebody else's profile, and then you can change the number of months that are set or change different parameters to try and capture more or less results. The dynamic results really refers to the fact that this is fairly quick. So we get results quickly, so you can tweak things. Like I said, you can change a number here and there and get a different set of results. So if you find that you've got too many results and you don't want to read all of those, or you don't want to go out and look at all of those books in the stacks, you can just change the parameter and find fewer, kind of go down to the point of having the lowest hanging fruit, the easiest things to read. There's a lot, the dynamic sort of refers also to the fact that you're not tied into any single classification type or any kind of group of titles. You can choose Dewey, you can choose your own collection codes, you can choose BISAC, you can choose formats, and you can combine any of those things together. So you can have multiple different Deweys, for example, and then make them adult or paperback only, that kind of thing. Filter for anything. The other piece of it is that you can also set parameters for multiple copies. So if you want to just find things where there's just excess copies, you can say, I want to look at a weeding result that's only for things that have 3 or more copies on the shelf. And then it's much easier in some ways to decide to weed those, or to delegate that to somebody else to go and weed them, and with maybe the instruction that they can weed every one except the last one, and then you at least know you're not removing something entirely. And it really helps identify the low-hanging fruit, so you can get to the things that are really there's too many copies in the holdings and are really sort of taking up space. So that could be bestsellers that have kind of died, things that were in a book club that are no longer popular, kids series books that fall out of favor and so on. So we had lots of copies. And then the rationales, that means the results will be given to you based on these reasons, essentially, and that's whether or not something's poorly circulating, potentially worn, meaning it's high circed, or outdated, as in it's aged. And you can look at these all separately or together in combination. And they can be, they may overlap, so you might have things that have poorly circulating and outdated at the same time. And then kind of as far as the process goes in a workflow, the next step, once you've identified things, is to do something about them. So you can print directly from the weeding page. You can select titles. You can either select all, you can select some, you can select everything on one page. And then you can either add them to an action plan. So if you're working from multiple different reports and you want to add everything to one list and then sort that list and print that list, an action plan is a way to kind of build those up. But you can also just do it directly from the weeding screen. You can create a PDF that's got barcode and everything in there. And it includes things like last checked out dates, year-to-date circulation, the barcode, and lifetime circulation. So when you take that report to the stacks, you've got that information, that detail about each item. And so it looks like this kind of thing. So that's the presentation on it. I'm going to flip really quick to another window to show you exactly how to do this. So when you're in Edelweiss Analytics, you will see a page like this, and these pages vary a bit depending on the user. You can reorganize these lanes into the sequence you want, or in some cases you may not see all of these lanes if you don't have multiple locations, for example, multiple branches. But the idea with many of these areas is a way to kind of pinpoint the parts of the collection that you'd like to work on. So, for example, you might say, I need to know how well, or which, if I'm thinking of weeding in particular, I might be looking for poorly performing parts of the collection, and I can do that by drilling into the distribution of categories. So if I'm looking at print, this is actually sort of a hierarchy of our own collection codes of this demo library. I can kind of drill in, and what I'm doing here is showing which of those areas are more or less overstocked. So a very broad category as far as adult print, but you can kind of keep on drilling in and seeing these subcategories compared to each other. And then we get down to some things that are more useful at the level of biography, Spanish nonfiction, exactly, et cetera, I should say. So these two categories are the ones that have high holdings. This is what this 2 represents here in the category performance chart. We have high holdings and relatively low circulation. Also, I should point out here, I'm looking at the main branch. You have multiple branches. You'll have a selector at the top, and you can pick all locations together, combined together, or you can pick a particular location. So I'm on the main branch right now, which is the one that tends to be kind of the holding place and is more overstocked in general than the others. But if I decided I wanted to sort of do something about this, do something about the fact that biographies are overstocked, then I can move on to using different aspects of the tool to figure out which books are stale, to see what I might want to weed. If I was looking at the other end of this, where it says test books and maybe we're understocked, I could use Edelweiss to pinpoint some titles to bring into that collection that might be things that would circulate well for us, and just to expand that and serve the patrons better by having more test books. But since we're on weeding, that can just be a way for you to have decided we need to have a closer look at biography in the main branch. And then what would you do about it? You could also have a look at this collection analysis. While I'm filtering this way, or drilling in, it's creating these temporary filters at the top of the page. And so everything I'm looking at on this page is filtered in that way. So you could be looking at this, looking for stale titles. You could take a look at the circulation over time in adult nonfiction. So we're looking at that bigger category, sort of gone up and down. It has something terrible happened last year in the demo store. And this will show you the actual circulation for these dots. So you can do a lot more analysis to help you with your decision making about what you're targeting and maybe why you're targeting it. And if you have multiple branches, maybe part of the decision is to try and move some copies from one to the other. If you've got a floating collection and you need to rebalance a bit, these tools can be really helpful with that, with the category comparison, location comparison tools, location performance comparison, and also the location comparison, which will actually give you particular titles that are unique to one branch and searching well that are not even held at another branch. But I'm going to keep on the theme of weeding and try not to get distracted. So this lane here called weeding analysis, you all should have this one. And this is where you can get into the nitty-gritty of specific reports to show you items that you might want to remove from the collection. So I talked earlier about there being profiles and filters. This is a profile here. I'm just going to remove this temporary filter. It's called excess copies. Now, the first time you come in here, it will just say default, and it will have some default numbers down here. But you can create new profiles. You can copy other people's profiles. You can share a profile, like I said, with other people in the library system. And you can call them whatever you like. But remember, they're really just about the parameters. They're not about particular parts of the collection necessarily. They're probably more about this is a grubby report, or this is for things that are poorly circulating. So in this case, this weeding profile I have up is called excess copies. So I have set one of these filters to be at least 3 copies on the shelf. So this is the instance I was talking about, where there's multiples that are not circling, and you might want to ask somebody to pull the last few for 1 copy and leave 1 on the shelf, depending on the state of things. So I can change these too. So if I thought this is really giving me too many results, how about poorly circulating is a bit digressive there. Maybe we say poorly circulating is, instead of 18 months, make it 100 months. So you can change that, click on run. Get results. So this is what I was meaning about changing on the fly, and that will change it so that you get a different number of results. So if you find that poorly circulating 100 months still comes up with too many results, it comes up with a lot, then you can keep going up with the months. But more likely what you'd want to do is apply a filter, because at this point I'm not filtering for anything. I'm looking at the whole library or the whole of the main branch and what is poorly circulating. So it's obviously not very targeted to a part of the branch at all. But just to show you kind of how the weeding profile part of it works. So you've got this excess copies. If you thought, well, I want to create a new one of these, or I want to actually update it so it's permanently 100 months. The red here means that it's temporarily set to 100 months for you to run this. I could update it, and now excess copies has a setting of poorly circulating must be 100 months with no check-ins or check-outs. And then if I click on this or click on the edit button, I can change the name of it. And then I could also decide to share it with my colleagues here. So that would be editing it. If you click on the name of it itself, it will open up something a bit like the filters, where you've got, they're sort of divided into things that you recently used, profiles that you created and saved yourself, and then also the profiles that your colleagues shared with you. So a colleague shared one that's called Dead, and one that's called Grubby, and so on. So or adult mystery, date sensitive, copy sensitive. So I can just select another one and run that. And you'll see this one that's called Grubby has nothing set for poorly circulating and nothing set for outdated. So it's really just looking for things that have high checkouts, so things that are worn. So if I run that, I'm going to get, again, probably a lot of results because I'm not filtering for a category. It's just to kind of show you the mechanism of this piece here. And if I wanted to create a new one, I can click on the plus and say, okay, I have an idea for a profile. I'm going to call it Kids 500. No, that's not my filter. I'm going to call it Really Dead even better than the other profile. And this is not going to be, it's going to copy the profile from Grubby, but then I'm going to change it to be purely circulating is, even more months than last time, 120 months. I have to uncheck this box. So what this box where it says ignore from analysis, that is the one that's making it not set. So if you want to make something that just uses one parameter, like worn, then you would open up the setting and you would check the box to ignore from analysis, and it would set it to, well, it wouldn't set it, it would just not include it when it does the report. So in the case of worn, I'm going to say, I'm actually not going to combine this with worn. I'm going to ignore worn from here. And then outdated, I could include that. Maybe I could combine that for my really dead or not. So I could say it's at least 15 years old, or I could say maybe it has to be, well, let's say 15 years old. That's fine. Leave it 15. Take that out so that it reactivates the outdated. And then maybe I'm not going to do the outdated for years in ILS, but that's another setting. I could go back and say how many years has this been in the ILS and include that too. And then this is where you can change the number of copies. So at least one copy at the moment, but I could change that up to a higher number if I wanted to. And then if I want to keep these settings, so this is now my really dead profile, the settings will change from red to black, meaning that they've been saved. I'm going to click on Run. And then I should see some really dead title items. Here we go. And again, this is running this parameter against everything in the whole library system because I have no filter set. So that does give you an idea that you can get a lot of results and fairly quickly as well. And then once you have the results, you can do a lot. You can sort by any of these headers. You can export and so on. But just to show you the kind of results you'll get, these are individual items at the library. So to get to a little bit more specific, say, to part of the collection, you probably are familiar with the idea of the saved filters. This is a really crucial thing to using analytics at all because these filters apply to everything. So if you make a filter, it could be a part of your collection, it could be a particular format, it could be lots of combinations of things, and you save that filter, and then you can apply it to all of these lanes to find out what's happening in the collection. So if I click on Apply Saved Filter, it's not only apply, it's actually also the place where you can create them if you want to. And you can, like these profiles, you've got these categories of filters. Recently used, these are ones I've been touching and running recently. My saved ones are all the ones that I've actually created. And then just like these filters, they can be shared with my colleagues. So the shared with me are ones that colleagues have shared with me. So adult fiction, for example, one of my colleagues made this, and I can select it and it will apply. So again, really big category. So that's not where I'm going to go, but I'm going to, I've got examples of things in here. So you can see, for example, Kids 500. And if I want to see what that means exactly, I've actually made it so that, oops, here we go, 500, you can click on the edit button. And it's actually not all Kids 500s. What I did was make a filter that's astronomy and physics. So really, I should rename this to be and the reason you might do something like this is to sort of pinpoint the books that find the things that might still be talking about Pluto as a planet, or find things where the science is out of date. But again, so I'm combining age with the filters, and so age with the category. And what I've done here is to select Dewey, and then within Dewey, you can drill down into the decimals and pick particular categories. So what I had done here is to pick astronomy, already in there, so it's not adding, but you can see what would happen if you added chemistry. We'll add multiple duties and something else, or add multiple things if you want. So I've also added age, which is a really common way to do this. So you might say I want all adult or all juvenile, which would include everything that's not adult, essentially. So I'm going to say I'm going to share it. Why not? Everybody in the library can see it. And then close this. And then if I run this here, I'm probably going to narrow down to a much smaller set of titles. So using the really dead profile, there's not that many, but there are things that haven't circulated. So these should be things that have not circulated in at least 120 months. So it will show you here the last checked out date. It will show you the barcode. You can resort by things like circulation. So if you want to know the lifetime circulation, if you click sort twice, you'll get the things that sort the most. Click it once, you'll get the things that sort the least. And then over on the right, you can see the rationale. So you can see why these items are on the list. So this one, for example, is both outdated and poor circulation. So not only does it meet the criteria for poor circulation, it's also an older title, 2001. And then the next step from here would be to do something with these. So you can take a couple of approaches, and you might want to sort first, because if you sort first, you'll get your report in the order that it's sorted in, I guess. So you might sort by call number. You can also do things like filter by call number. So if you wanted to find something in particular, so you wonder, if there's anything actually on this list with the word Pluto in it, and no, there isn't. Or if there's anything or which things are in the 539. So I can go 539, and it will just immediately kind of give me things that have that string 539 somewhere in the words. And then I could just take these. So I wanted to get a super short list of the things that are 539 for call number, add that to a PDF or to an action plan. So I was saying earlier, the action plan is a way that you would put them on a list of things that you can add to more things later, so you're not actually printing out right now. So I could say, let's add this to an action plan that is create a new plan by selecting that. Call it, not really Pluto books, but what the heck, I'm calling this list. And then it's going to put them on that list. And then I can come back and do another round, maybe looking at some other call numbers or some other criteria, find some other things I want to put on that action plan, and then look at the action plan as a single list and sort that and then print that. And this is where you get to the action plans up here. But one of the things I think is kind of cool, and which people maybe use even more in reading, is to just take this and go straight to a document with it. So if I've already got all the titles selected. If I click on export to PDF, and it will generate a PDF called Really Dead. And this is, I showed an example of this at the beginning, but it's got the ISBN, your item ID, when it was created, that title, author, call number, collection code, last checked out, circulation, and of course the barcode. So you could send this to, you could actually save this PDF, email it to somebody at another branch if you're in a different location, and ask them to go out to the stacks and do something about those. And again, these are individual items, so they're you could potentially see, there's not on this list, but you could potentially see multiple lines for the same book, but different versions of it. So if I take this, I'm going to just unfilter for 539, and then I've got everything, and I can deselect by clicking on that X, and then I can say, okay, I've got my all of my items here. If I want that whole list, and I want it, say I do want it sorted by column number, that way around, and then I'm going to say, if you select at the top of the page, you're going to select everything on the page. So I'm going to say select all 93 items, and export those to PDF. So it's the same thing before, but the much longer list. Now, the other thing too is if you decided to kind of separate these parameters, instead of creating a new profile, if you just wanted to see the books in that list that were the poorly circulating ones, you can actually click on this bar here, and you've got the 28, it selects just the 28 titles, or it shows you just the 28 titles that are poorly circulating as opposed to the ones that are outdated. And then you could click on outdated and switch to the list of outdated titles instead. Yeah. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of different ways to slice and dice. And because it's quick and gives you quick results, you can experiment really. so you get a reasonable number of items. So if you're thinking this is a relatively small collection, we want to get rid of 10% of it, you can sort of, if you have an idea that there's X number of units already, which you can get from some analytics, you can kind of hone this down until it's suggesting about that number of units, and then you're reducing the shelf space by approximately that percentage. So it gives you just ways to muck around and change all these settings, change your filters, and come up with some suggestions for reading. So I think that's it for me. If you had questions, I hope they were answered. If not, please feel free, if you think of something later, to email us at any time at support@abovethetreeline.com, or to just connect with us through the help on the website. Thanks very much. Bye.